Hello, Crushings. Noisy Paul here. The Electric Crush is a weekly internet radio show with a rock and punk format hosted by Punk and Judy every Wednesday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Today's guest is Gil Moore. Gil is the drummer for Triumph, which is one of my all-time favorite bands. Banger Films filmed a documentary on Triumph titled Rock and Roll Machine. We will talk about the documentary and a lot more. There's no one in this world who appreciates your time right now more than I do. I don't believe in a bucket list, but if I had one, talking to you today is it. And how are you doing, Gil?
Good, Paul. Thanks for the nice intro, and yeah, I'm happy to be here talking to you as well.
No, I appreciate that. So the Electric Crush is based out of Pittsburgh. It's a worldwide internet thing, but it's based out of Pittsburgh. Do you have any memories of playing in Pittsburgh?
Sure do. I mean, the Civic Arena there was always a great play, on our later tours, and the fans in Pittsburgh were something else.
Yeah.
And towards the end of our touring career, one of the things that ended up happening is I had tendonitis in my elbows so bad. And I was fortunate that I was able to get one of the team doctors from the Penguins to help me out. Yeah, it was so bad I could barely play. It just happened kind of once in my career, but it's not uncommon with drummers to have that issue.
Right.
And I guess the other thing about Pittsburgh that I'll remember, Danny Kresge, our promoter there, was a great guy, and he first brought us into the Stanley Theater.
Right.
And and we had the Babies open for us there, and they I guess it's become sort of a thing of legend that they started trashing our equipment for some reason. John Waite just decided that he was going to start trashing our lights, I'm not sure what his motivation was, but our stage manager didn't take too kindly to it. And he told the Babies stage manager, he says, tell your man, like, if he touches Triumph lights one more time, it's not going to end well for him.
Right.
And it didn't.
Oh no.
So our stage manager at the time, Michael Sharon, he went center stage and just did a flying tackle.
Oh no.
That was kind of the end of John Waite's performance. And then the funniest thing was the IASI crew dropped the curtain because there was this massive fisticuffs going on stage. There was like 10 guys that piled on, but the curtain jammed. So it only got down to about 36 inches off the deck, and then it stopped. So the audience could see this fight going on. Guys that were on the ground, they could see the whole thing, and the ones that were on the ground, they could see just their legs flailing and stuff. So you can imagine it was a hilarious scene. I hope the Babies, after all these years, think it's as funny as I think it is. I don't know if still offended by it or not, but it was in, like, I don't know, it was like on the wire the next day. It must have been in 130 newspapers.
Oh yeah.
And we just thought the whole thing was funny. I don't know what it was with John Waite, why he wanted to trash the lights, but
right.
Stage manager was not a guy that you trifle with, so it didn't work out well for him.
That's cool. So in the Rock and Roll Machine documentary, it starts off with you renting out equipment, but I believe our childhood represents who we are as rock and rollers now. When and how did you first appreciate music, and when did you realize music was going to be your life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I first walked into the Cedar Crest Casino in Port Elgin Beach when I was about 11 with my buddy Brad, and there was a band called the Comets playing there, and we were kind of scared because we were a little too young to be in the venue. There wasn't licensed or anything. It was just, they probably just served pop, but just the same, we were little kids, and I don't know how we got in. We didn't have any money, so it must have snuck in. And this band, the Comets, they had a drummer. He had red sparkle drums, and the guy was, I heard the cymbals and I heard the tom toms and everything, and I just went, wow, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
So, that was followed with trying to figure out how many lawns I could cut that summer to save up the money to buy drums. And I mean, that's what planted the seed for me, was just seeing a guy play drums and hearing the cymbals crash and going, wow, that looks like something I want to do.
That's what your inspiration to play the drums was, from that first experience?
Yeah, it was kind of instantaneous. Like, I guess I've heard guitar players say, the minute they heard a guitar, they were just
Right.
enthralled with the instrument. I mean, that's the way it was for me with drums. I don't know what you could say about a bass player though. Who would walk up and go,
Yeah.
Dean, that question, like,
I remember I have like this old like 9mm film of like black and white and no audio and stuff, of me carrying a drum down the street when I was like maybe 3 years old or something like that. And I've always been fascinated with drums. I tried to take drum lessons and all that stuff, and I just never could keep a beat. But I think that's so awesome that, you're the first drummer. I just started this podcast, but I've been in music for about 40 years. And you're the first drummer on my podcast now, so I'm really excited that I get to talk drums. And who would you say was your idols or influences back then?
well, I had a bunch of them. I mean, the first one would have been Al Jackson and Booker T and the MGs, and
Oh yeah,
he played on so many great R&B records, with Steve Cropper and Duck Dunn and those guys, and so that was kind of I would say their very first. In rock, no doubt, Ian Pace is my favorite drummer.
sure.
Of rock drummers, and John Bonham closely following closely would be
Right.
another one that I spent quite a bit of time studying a lot of his technique. But I also will say, like, on the jazz side, Buddy Rich, greatest drummer of all
Of
time,
course.
in my opinion. I stood about 36 inches from his bass drum
Oh yeah.
playing concerts. I was literally he was only on a 6-inch or an 8-inch stage. It was almost at ground level, and I was able to stand there. I could feel my shins, my pants shake from his
Right.
bass. The air from his bass drum was actually shaking my pant legs.
Right.
Uh, I've never heard anything remotely close to what Buddy Rich could do by anyone else. And I mean, I've been around some great jazz drummers, Alan Dawson, and just different guys. And I don't know, the people that testify about Buddy, I would just say the same thing. Plus, he had the best drummer's name. I mean, who doesn't want to be called Buddy if you're a drummer, right?
That's right.
Yeah. We used to joke. I used to call myself Buddy Moore sometimes when we were kidding around backstage, right?
There you go.
The best drummer name is Buddy.
Yeah. So when did you know that you could sing?
Well, I know, not even sure if I ever figured that out, but
Well, you're a great singer.
yeah, I hated singing. It was just something that was thrust upon me. One of my early failure bands before Triumph, we had a monumentally important gig at a place called Honey Harbor, and we were getting paid a huge fee. I can't remember if it was $100 or $125. It was a ton of money. And our singer quit that week, and we were practicing at Willowdale United Church, getting ready to go up there and cash in on this huge gig.
Right.
And so we looked at each other and we went, well, I guess if we don't sing, we don't play. If we don't play, we don't get to go up there and play this great job. So I called a friend of mine who was a singer in another band, and I said, his name was Joe, and I said, Joe, can you come over and teach us all how to sing? So he came over. He said, let me see your repertoire. And we had all the songs. He said, okay, we got to divide the songs up. So, and they were all covers, it was decided that I was going to do the Steppenwolf covers. So I said, okay, Gil, let's start with Sookie Sookie. So he just took a microphone and he put his microphone beside mine, and then we played the song, and he sang, and he just kind of sang right into my ear and said,
Right.
do this. And he did the same thing for each guy in the band. And we divided the songs up. And, like 3 or 4 hours later, we were a singing band. I mean, I'm sure we were pretty terrible, but we had this mindset that we were going to do it. So we went up, we played the gig, and you know, we rescued the $125.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, so after we paid the truck rental and the PA rentals, you know, we had $1.49 each to split up. You know, it's terrific.
Yeah. When did you become the pyromaniac?
Well, you know, once I got singing out of my life, try if I had to do the same thing, right? It was kind of the same thing as this other band I'm talking about. I was like, Rick couldn't sing all the songs. Yeah, I eventually did take singing lessons, and I actually did seriously end up enjoying vocals as actually a pile of fun. And I had Elaine Overholt and Ed Johnson, who were two great vocal coaches and stuff, and had a lot of fun with it. But anyway, that ties off the singing. Now you want to get into pyro, which is much more important than singing. Pyro, I don't know whether the fascination must have come from, you know, firecracker day as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, and just lighting firecrackers off in the schoolyard and stuff like that. And when I first saw some magic tricks that involve fire and things like that, I thought that was, you know, pretty neat stuff. And, you know, seeing, you know, pyro with rock music for the very, very first time, I thought, you know, wow, this is really a lot of fun. And I just generally like lighting, effects, the theater of it all. And I always thought that the bands that had, you know, sort of great stage shows, you know, it just made it so much more fun being at a concert. So when Mike and I decided we were gonna form this band and call it Triumph, that was just part of from the outset. It was like, okay, we're gonna be really, you know, theatrical, and we're going to take every element we can, you know, going all the way back to vaudeville, you know, and
Right.
everything we can think of that's and hopefully different, not just the same as, but you know, the artists that before our time that had believed in what I'll call the big show, or the cinema of it all that goes along with the music. And now it just became like a standard Triumph signature that we just kept reinventing lighting effects and stage effects, and trying to make the music, you know, have this theatrical backdrop that was a segue that went through everything we did.
Right. Your Maple Leafs had a good year this year.
They did.
I'm a diehard New York Rangers fan. So, tell us something about Gil Moore that even the super fans wouldn't know about you.
Well, you mentioned hockey, so I wanted to be in the NHL more than I wanted to play drums, but I wasn't good enough, you know. So sort of one door closes, another door opens, and you know, in hockey, you know, I was in a great neighborhood where all the kids played hockey and all the fathers, you know, supported it. My dad took me to hockey practice, you know, 5 a.m., you know, to Dixie Arena and Port Credit Arena, and went through that whole thing. And all of us, every single kid in my neighborhood, we all want to play in the NHL. None of us were good enough. None of us did get to the NHL. So at a certain point, you know, you migrate into these other areas. So I got into, there was this intersection of golf, drums, and hockey that all sort of, you know, was around age 12, 13, in there where it started. And by the time I was 14, it was even golf was fading, and it was okay, drums is the one. And you know, I was just hoping I could be good enough at something to, you know, to make a go of it. And drums was the one that caught on for me.
Right. 1979, my parents dropped me off at the Trumbull County Fair, and I was about 12 years old at the time. And as soon as we entered, I hooked up with a friend, and that later that night we huddled around the grandstand. It was our county fairground, and I hear this music, and I'm like going, I love this music. And then all of a sudden, it was on 4th of July, no less. And there's all those fireworks and pyros and everything. Couldn't see you, but I heard you. And then we heard all that, and I'm sitting there thinking, that's pretty odd that those, you know, fireworks were in sync with the music. And then later, you know, of course, I found out that it was you guys. Do you have any? Because I looked at your touring schedule, and I don't think you played too many dates on that year. Do you have any ideal remember that night at the fairground?
A lot of the gigs kind of blend into each other, but I remember that at that particular show, I just remember our crew formed a band.
Yeah.
We came in for sound check, and our crew was playing AC/DC.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty good. We should have let them. I think we let them open for us once, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah. Tell us about the documentary. Was it accurate?
Oh yeah, it's 100% genuine. Like there's no fake anything in that.
Right.
Not from the band. The band was sincere, and all the fans were obviously sincere, and the other folks that were interviewed were sincere as far as the story. It's all there.
Yeah.
Transparent.
I watched it probably 10 times, and it was very impressive. I thought it was very, very impressive.
I appreciate that, Paul. I mean, the credit doesn't go to the band, though. The credit really goes to the directors and writers.
Right.
So, the late great Peter Goddard and Ralph Chapman were the writers, and Don Allen was co-producer, and the directors were Mark Ricciardelli, who also directed the edit and did the edit himself, and Sam Dunn, and they were just a great group of people to work with, and they were really. They just had an amazing lens into our career. We really didn't know what it was going to be like till it was finished.
Right.
But yeah, we really liked the film as well, and we felt really lucky that the fans that participated and the things they said, and some of the people from the industry that were in it as well. It was really a great experience for us.
That's really exciting. How is a general person able to get the documentary at this point?
Yeah, so it depends where you are in the world. Like in Canada here, it's on Crave, which is a streaming service like Netflix in America, and it's on there every day 365. We did several film festival premieres, which of course are gone. We did the Toronto International Film Festival, which is the big one. We also did. I believe we did Philadelphia's International Film Festival, and I believe Sarasota, Florida as well, but they were just one-time plays. We had a worldwide pay-per-view streaming in America, or I shouldn't say America, was emanated from America, but it was worldwide over nugs.net. That's already gone by. And I believe what is coming next is two things that the film should be available. And I hope I'm right here, but I think it's going to be on Amazon Prime and on Apple Music.
Okay.
As well as that, I think Roundhill is producing a DVD hard disk. So anybody that wants a DVD can get a DVD. I'm not sure what the date is for either one of those, but it'll be this summer as far as the other streamers are concerned, and I think it will probably be not much later than this fall for the DVD.
Right. So the documentary, the one thing that I noticed it was missing was it really didn't focus on what great musicians you were. You guys are great musicians, and especially songwriters. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, thanks, Paul. I mean, we, I guess you can't cover everything in a documentary, and honestly, like I really thought the essence of the band was it had more to do with kind of our character in terms of how we approached music than if we were good musicians, average musicians, great musicians, that's for other people to judge, really.
Right.
I know that there's in music, it's like being an athlete. There's always people that are stronger and better and that hit longer home runs. So compared us that way. I thought more of us as kind of like a team, and competing in almost like a sport, because for us the sheer endurance being a power trio is a big thing. And the era that we were really involved in, I mean, there were great bands. I mean, whether it was Journey or it was Judas Priest or Iron Maiden, Ozzy, like there was just so many good bands, and
Right.
our fellow countrymen Rush, for example, and geez, just the great other groups out there. So we felt like we were fortunate that we were able to play in the same league, basically, almost like in sports. I first started seeing some of the bands that preceded us by a few years. Johnny Winter, for example. I love Johnny Winter.
Right.
Blue Oyster Cult. They were earlier than we came along. ZZ Top, one of my favorite bands from all time.
Sure.
So we just had a great run, and boy, oh boy, I wouldn't change a thing, really.
Yeah. So as I said earlier, my past interviews has mostly been with guitar players and songwriters, and I've asked them about their process of writing songs. When a song was brought to you, what is your process on writing the drum parts?
Well, I think that the songs that for my 2 cents worth on Triumph is when we started on sort of jamming stuff out on the studio floor or in one of our warehouses up here. Those are the songs where I think we shone as a band rather than anytime we ever had an outside songwriter involved in it, because kind of the essence of how we started jamming. That's the very first time we ever played together. Mike and Rick and I were jamming. And
Right.
it was a great way to write songs, is to get an idea and jam on it and then see where it leads you.
Right.
So those rhythms were not so crafted from a standpoint of, this is what needs to happen here. It was more like let it flow and see where it takes you.
Right.
We always did think rhythm was a very important part of Triumph songs. And I don't just mean on the drums. I mean the rhythm of the bass and the rhythm of the guitar, the rhythm of the vocals, the rhythm generally, like Mike and I were bluesmen, which blues is all about rhythm and feel. So hopefully we incorporated that as much as we could.
In your own words, describe your interpretation of what Triumph is all about.
Well, we had a good spirit in our band, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Humor was what really held us together on the road. The road's really stressful, and any musician that has toured and been in hotel after hotel and airport after hotel knows what I'm talking about. And we were pretty good at not letting the stress get to us and keeping it light. And that was really, I think, what also drove us on stage. So we weren't one of those bands where we went on stage and the musicians hate each other and we're just doing it. Like
Right.
It's sad when that happens. We went on stage. We were three guys that were trying to knock it out of the park every single night, and
Right.
we were feeding off each other, sometimes laughing at each other if we made mistakes. And backstage it was a comedy fest. Travel wise, it was a comedy fest. We had a lot of fun on the road, and that alleviated some of that stress of having the label telling you, oh, this record, we need this video, we need this, get back on the road. All that pressure you get from the business was, we just had a good little Three Musketeers boys club, I would say, within Triumph. And I think that was kind of our essence, was really the camaraderie and that aspect of what we were.
Right. And back then, radio stations and record labels were very, very monumental and instrumental with helping bands. If, like, as a fan, I would go into the record store and say, "Hey, Jeff, what's new? What can you turn me on to? I need something new." And then you put on the radio. It was sort of fun back then. It wasn't about commercials and stuff. And I know that San Antonio was instrumental in breaking Triumph into US. Tell us about, your experiences with the radio.
Well, our first big break in America, started at radio. And this was very, very early on, because I remember hearing the very, very first time on radio in Toronto, one of our songs come on and go, oh my God, you know, as a kid, you're always thinking how amazing that would be. And then suddenly you've actually got a record, and then suddenly the thing's actually on the radio and you almost can't believe your ears. But
Right.
it was a short time thereafter that Kiss FM in San Antonio, Lou Roney and the Joe, the godfather of rock and roll, as we call him, Joe Anthony was playing our very first record when it was just an import in America, but they started playing Triumph like the national anthem in San Antonio, and then one thing just led to another, and then of course, you know, we get this offer from Joe Miller at Jam Productions. Can you guys come down here and headline a municipal auditorium? We've got Joan Jett and the Runaways as a special guest, and we've got Yesterday and Today from LA as the opening act. And we're these three guys from Canada that at this point, like, we're pretty greenhorn. We're greenhorns up here, and you know, kind of rookies. And this is something like right from, you know, I don't know, something that you couldn't anticipate at that stage. But Sammy Hagar had been the headliner, and Sammy, they don't do these kinds of things anymore. The business is a little more organized, but he got an offer to open for Kiss at Madison Square. And I think that was like getting that move into Madison Square Garden. That was kind of a cool thing. And he was pretty young in his career there. You know, Kiss was a little earlier. And so he flipped the switch and went and did that. And that's how we got in there.
Right.
And we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know, like, were people going to, you know, keep buying tickets, or were they going to all want refunds, or what was going to happen? But as luck would have it, the tickets kept selling, like, right to the sellout. And, you know, we came down there and, you know, kind of half scared, kind of half not scared.
Right.
And anyway, we played, but as soon as we went on stage, we started seeing, like, the fans were so into what we were doing. It was just like, it became easy really fast, because they were so great, and they were just yelling and screaming and everything. So we kind of, I guess, you know, rookie luck. I mean, we kind of knocked it out of the park on the first show, and then that just lit the fuse in Texas from then on out.
Was that the first time you ever played in US?
Yes. Well, excuse me. We had played just across the border, but right around the same time, and only in a ballroom environment, like a nightclub environment. No, not a real legitimate concert hall. Right. The first legitimate concert hall in America was the auditorium in San Antonio.
Right. I spent a lot of time in Texas, and San Antonio is one of my all-time favorite cities. And,
it's a great city, you know, and we had so many great shows there at Hemisphere Arena. I'm not sure if it's still called Hemisphere Arena.
It's not.
Yeah, everything's changed, right? So whatever it's called now, but you know, the mayor of San Antonio took us to the Alamo and gave us in 1983 gave us this incredible award, which we still have here at Metalworks Studios. And we just got treated like royalty in San Antonio before, since, and to this day. It's been a love affair with that city, you know, and the rest of Texas too, because we spread out of San Antonio. You know, the next thing was Corpus Christi was the next town to really embrace Triumph. You know, and then we got into West Texas, out to, you know, all the way out to El Paso and Laredo and all those towns. And it took a little bit longer with Dallas and Houston, of course, because they're bigger media markets. But when they explode, man, they're huge. I mean,
actually, I saw you in Houston on the Never Surrender and Sport of the Kings tour.
Yeah,
I saw those in Houston.
We played the Texas World Music Festival in '82, which was played back to back, the Astrodome one night and the Cotton Bowl the next night. It was like 80,000 people a night. Yeah, 2 weeks in a row. That was something else.
That was '82. I moved there in '83, so like I missed that. But I lived in Cleveland before that. So my all-time favorite albums are Just a Game. That was one of the first ones that I discovered you, and Thunder 7 is actually one of my all-time favorite albums. Are there any cool stories that you can share, whether it's from writing the songs, recording the songs, or touring from those two albums?
Well, I can tell you, Rick Emmett did the artwork for both of them.
Yeah.
So we always thought Rick's artwork was better than any artist at any label ever.
Under Seven is badass.
Yeah. So just a game. He made the whole game up, and
Right.
you know, a lot of people say, "Oh, did a game company make that? Is it a real game?" And I was like, "No, no, no. It's just Rick just made it up." You know,
Yeah.
and it's quite funny. You know, there's a little bit of humor in there, which was, like I said, part of our DNA was humor. So that's prevalent in that game. And you know, the take on Da Vinci's Man in the Wheel and Thunder 7 was, I think, a pretty cool adaptation.
Right.
Again, that Rick did, and it was kind of like one of our sort of like our iconic graphics. Like people still to this day love that art.
Right. Of course. Magic Power is such a great song musically and lyrically. And even to this day, and pretty much the majority of my life, the lyrics, then you hear the music and it all comes crystal clear. The music does the talking, says the things you want to hear. That's been my motto for almost all my life. And did you ever think when you were writing and recording that song, did you ever think that it would resonate with people the way that it did?
No, I don't think when you're putting songs together, you know, and Rick Emmett wrote those lyrics, and I think that when you first hear them, you know, you might, you know, as a band, you might go, oh, those you know, those are pretty good lyrics, but you don't put a whole lot of thought into that because you're developing, you know, you've got 15 or 16 or 25 other issues with the song, you know. Is it the
Right.
right tempo? Is it the right key? Is it, you know, is this part good? Is the bridge good? You know, and you're just kind of like, you got this piece of, you know, clay that you're trying to mold or something
Right.
like that. And you have no idea what the audience is going to think or how it's going to resonate over time. So what ends up happening is years later, you know, when the stories become facts in people's lives that they then relay to you, like in the movie you've seen, you know, Matt Hoffman, and you know, he's got, you know, this big fight, the good fight tattoo on his arm. And I mean, when I met him, he told me the story about, you know, when he had cancer,
Right.
you know, going for his chemo treatments and getting in the subway and looking at the tattoo and playing fight the good fight, you know, kind of singing it in his mind and so on. And how the heck could any songwriters, you know, ever predict that something
Right.
like that, you know? And there's been, honestly, that's one of so many stories that have come forth from our fans that are that make you realize, hey, maybe there was something that was a little special that was going on when this particular piece of music was written. And I think as musicians, it just makes you kind of grateful that it did resonate and that maybe was meaningful at a certain moment in people's lives.
Right. Do you have a song, band, or album that resonates with you as much as your music does to us?
Yeah, I mean, I like all kinds of music. I mean, I've, you know, sort of mentioned quite a few times that, you know, ZZ Top's one of my favorite bands. So ZZ's very funny. You know, they
Yeah.
they charge out of the, you know, everything from the beards and the fuzzy guitars and the tongue-in-cheek lyrics and all that stuff. But I mean, as a drummer, I like the rhythm, and I'm a blues man, so that it
Sure.
leads into a lot of things. You know, Billy Gibbons, just phenomenal guitar player to me.
Oh yeah.
But you know what? I like so many different kinds of music. I mean, I guess R&B probably my all-time. You know, always will be. You know, I just as soon listen to Sam Cooke as anybody else. Uh,
Right.
and you know, learn to play drums, listening to Booker T and the MGs, Al
Sure.
Jackson. So yeah, I've got a lot of favorites, I would say, Paul. So it's hard to, you know, kind of sort them out, and you know, when did they happen and what were the influences and so on. It's a mixed bag, I would say, for me, as far as
Sure.
you know, what pushed me one way or the other in music.
Right. Was there ever any songs that you recorded in a different arrangement that wasn't the same arrangement that was on the album?
Oh yeah, many songs changed arrangements either in the studio we did it one way, and then in the last minute when we were in mix mode, we went, oh, this part's not working or whatever. And there's like an edit performed or a re-record.
You have an example or two?
Piece. And then the other flip side of that coin is like when we go on tour and we take a song and we, break it up, like for, many years when we played Lay It on the Line, which was, all over the radio one way, but when we played it, we had a sort of a bridge solo part that was lifted out of another song altogether and inserted, like, so it was like essentially a medley, really, is what it was, of two songs, or a blend of the two songs. We did stuff like that all the time.
Did you or Mike ever bring an idea to Rick when he was in the middle of writing a song or so? Did you ever give him a suggestion that he may or may not have used?
Oh yeah, many times. I mean, if you talk to Rick, he would tell you that, it was constant exchange of ideas all the time. And that's part of that process in a band. Like, that's the collaboration that needs to happen to really create, I guess I'd call it a signature, for a band, that free flowing exchange of ideas. I think Rick was, he was more structured in his thinking, and he's and plus, to me, I think of Rick as a master musician, and we make all the requisite prerequisite drum jokes, drummers not being musicians and all that stuff, but we work really well together, and a lot of times, like, I could express rhythmic things to him that they're just not really part of a guitar player's world.
Sure.
And then there would be other times I'd be talking to him and he'd say, where's that going melodically or chord structure? And I'm like, I don't know. And I'm singing stuff to him, and I'm saying, can you come up with this sound? Like, what do you think of this? Like the beginning of Fight the Good Fight, for example, the solo, which is on a recorder, that was just me singing to Rick and Rick singing with a guitar and figuring out, okay, Gil, this is what you're saying, right? And figuring it out, and then recording it with a recorder. So that's where that Celtic melody came from, which I have no idea where it came from. It just came, out of my head. But
what was some of your favorite songs that you like playing live?
The one I just mentioned, Fight the Good Fight, I really like playing that one. I kind of got a kick out of Allied Forces because it was a really great workout physically, and I also felt like it was looking right into the fans' faces, and kind of because the lyric is about the fans. Right. So it's kind of good in a live concert setting to know that you're talking right to them, and I really felt like they were getting it. Right. But I like dollar songs. They all had different challenges as far as playing, and I guess for me, Paul, it was more like, what's going to move the audience the most.
How was it determined which one of you sang the songs? Was there any songs that Rick sang that you felt you could have sung better, or was there a process did you record both vocals, but the song with you singing and the song with Rick singing?
A few times we did that, but generally not. I mean, usually while we were actually writing the song, we were on the floor. Right. It would just be kind of like the three of us would be, seeing what the structure was and where the melody fell, and it was kind of like, oh, that sounds more like a Gil song. That sounds more like a Rick song. It was more informal, just kind of make it up as you go along stuff.
Right. In the documentary, you had mentioned that Alice Cooper had his shock thing, and 60s psychedelic thing was really cool, and Triumph just blew stuff up. There really isn't anything left for new bands to wow people, I feel. And if you were a new band, how would you reinvent yourself in your brand?
Well, I think there's never, like, art evolves, and I think that there's a ton of opportunities then it'll continue for all sorts of artistic presentations, not just music. But I think with technology now, artists have got a huge palette that they can draw on. They've got so many more things. I'm a junkie for the audio visual. Like, I love lighting, and I love every aspect of it, and I love the theater aspect. So, you know, for me, that's a question where I'd go, "Are you kidding me, Paul? There's so many more tools in the tool chest now. You know, just watch me." But you know, that was in our sort of you know, era. You know, we had the tools that were available to us, and we were always trying to push that envelope. But I think new acts can do that if they're so inclined. A lot of them aren't. A lot of them just no, we just want to play our music and, you know, turn a few lights and away we go. And I respect that totally. It's, you know, it's up to each, you know, artist, like how they want to present their show to the audience, and, you know, what they're trying to do with their stage performance.
Right. I'm a huge theatrical person. I'm a very, very big Alice Cooper fan, and you pay a lot of money, especially nowadays, to go to a concert. And in fact, you handpick which ones you want to go to now. Back when you guys were, when you guys were it's like you could go to 4 or 5 concerts a week and it didn't break you. And now you have to be real selective, and you could always go see an Alice Cooper concert and get your money's worth. It's like, it's, you know, and it's the theatrics. It's not just the music. You can sit here and listen to the music on Spotify, and, you know, but it's the show, I feel, that makes it. And that's what made you guys so awesome. Like I really had a great time. In fact, actually, I have a funny story. I think it was Thunder or Never Surrender tour. I was living in Houston. I lived about 45 minutes away from the arena, the Summit, and I wanted to be the first one in line. I got there like really early, like at noon. I was the first one right at the door. Probably heard your sound check if you did one at that time, and all of a sudden I realized, oh shoot, I forgot my ticket. I drove home, got my ticket, drove back, and I was still the first one in line. And like I just like I said, I just always had the greatest time at your shows. So how did you get the US or the US Festival gig anyway? That was pretty monumental for you as well.
Yeah, so, it was just offered to us. You know, we got a call from our agent and told me about the show, and, you know, are you interested? And the problem was we were playing the day before in Orlando at the Tangerine Bowl with ZZ Top. Right. And it was like, oh my God, the routing is horrible. Like, you know, from Orlando to San Bernardino outside of LA, and we couldn't get our gear, you know, over there in time. So like I ended up using a look-alike drum set that was really a rental set, which is not great. Like wearing somebody else's hockey skates, but nonetheless, you know, that was what was required. But yeah, we just got the offer, and you know, sort of, I dug in a little deeper. I think I wanted to know like kind of what Steve's vision was for this. Why was it called Us? And, you know, I got into the theory behind it. Well, that's how Steve and I met and became friends. And yeah, Waz is an amazing guy. He really, really is to this day. He's genius, and he's a very kind person. Right. So we got kind of into the spirit of what it was, and thought it was going to be a great thing for Triumph, and it was a great thing for us.
Right. And then MTV aired the Allied Forces concert. I had videotaped it, and I still have the VHS tape, and it's pretty worn out. I played it a million times, and I love the music, but it wasn't until I actually saw that concert, and it made the diehard fan that I am today. And the concept videos in the documentary, you talked about the cake, and and I about peed my pants when you said that, because it was, you know, it's funny because when I saw that originally, I thought the same thing. But let's face it, MTV did break a lot of bands, and I do think that if it wasn't for, I mean, perhaps if it wasn't for that concert that they filmed of you guys, I think, you know, who knows, you know, things could have been different, but I'm grateful for it. But what are your thoughts on the MTV?
Well, you know, the whole MTV era had a big impact on bands, and you know, part of it was positive, part of it was negative. You know, it was like all of a sudden you already had enough to do to try to make records and tour, And now all of a sudden the record label is saying, oh, you got to make these videos. And the video becomes a whole enterprise unto itself, you know, getting ready for it. Then you get all the influences. Oh, you should look this way. You should look that way.
Right.
You know, and then sometimes you go down a rabbit hole like we did with that stupid, what we called those two video clips. We called it Birthday Cakes in Space. That was our name for it.
Yeah.
You know, at least we can laugh about it. But yeah, so some of the stuff was good. I mean, MTV really helped promote Triumph. I can tell you, like we had some of our videos. I know Just One Night was top 10 at MTV for a long time, and some of our earlier videos were, you know, were on there. Like Laying on the Line was on there a lot.
Oh yeah.
It helps, you know, it helped promote the band and sell tickets and stuff. So it was kind of like, for a while, it was America's biggest radio station. Really, is what it was.
Right. And then may those who perished in the Great White Club fire rest in peace. But did you ever have any mishaps with the Pyros, and were you ever afraid of it backfiring at any given time?
You know, Paul, we were just talking about this in an interview that I just did earlier this afternoon, and really because of the era, like, but yeah, we did some things that we definitely should not have done. And it's kind of like looking back and saying, you know, motorcycle riders used to not wear helmets. You know, hockey players didn't wear mouth guards and they got their teeth knocked out. You know, I'm deaf, you know, because I didn't wear ear protection. You know, and you know, like cavalier sort of stuff with pyro and that. Well, yeah, the fire marshals didn't care about it back then, or they just didn't know about it. And you know, it sort of came out of the sort of the vaudeville era, and there was, you know, there just wasn't the what we now take for granted for common sense. Just it didn't just quite exist the same way. So all the bands that were doing pyro were doing dumb things, and you know, fortunately, the only people we ever hurt were ourselves. There were a lot of funny mishaps, but you know, the Great White thing, I think, was a different era, and by that time, you know, pyros were licensed, and to you know, to use pyro in that real low ceiling club was just incredibly a very, very dangerous thing to do, and obviously a catastrophic result. And you know, the pyrotechnician, whoever it was that did that, should have known better than to do that and hit that, you know, that low hung ceiling and set that club on fire.
I'd actually saw them the tour before. I think that was more just Jack Russell's gig, but I saw them the tour where it was was most of the band, and the pyros were really impressive. But I couldn't believe that they would shoot those off in a club. But so did you enjoy touring? Like, what was your favorite part about being out on the road?
Well, yeah, I loved it and hated it. I mean, the good part was the shows, you know, and the excitement around the shows, and you know, hanging with Mike and Rick, because we really we had a really good comradeship, and we, you know, played a lot of gags on each other and laughed it up, you know, a lot. So we kept it pretty light. That was the way to deal with the stress. Otherwise, if you let the stress get to you, touring wouldn't be fun at all. But over a period of time, you start to realize, like, I know that when we quit touring, it was at a pivotal point in my life. My father had passed away recently, and I'm an only child, and I wasn't going to leave my mom alone when she was elderly, and you know, be in a hotel 3,000 miles away, and you know, I wasn't going to do that. And also wanted to be with my kids growing up. I wasn't going to, you know, be somewhere else and not be there, you know, for my kids, and have some kind of remote relationship with my family. It just wasn't in the cards for me. So, you know, I'd really had enough of touring when we got to that stage, because at a certain point we're just returning to cities and we're duplicating what we've already done. So, you know, if you play you start out, you're playing these little, you know, crummy gigs in church basements when you're a musician, or you can't get a gig at all, and you know, you're just hoping somebody will hire you for something, and then, you know, you pass through some kind of crucible. The next thing you know, you find yourself, you know, playing in arena stages and stuff like that. You kind of can't believe it. But once you've done it, and you've done it multiple years in a row, it's sort of like, okay, been there, done that, you know. And some bands, you know, keep going as far as the eye can see. Like I heard this week, Paul McCartney's still out there, 80 years old, God
Right.
bless him. That's his life, and it's what he wants to do, and so on. But different strokes for different folks. I know Mike and Rick kind of felt the same way. We had a really good run, but I don't think really any of us really were intent on preserving it and then running it out to the extent that some of the bands that we were out there with that have done it. I mean, watching AC/DC go as far as they went,
Right.
and Iron Maiden, a couple others that just kept touring. Wow, amazing stuff. But I wouldn't trade being at home with the family and being off the roads, so to speak, with more touring years. I wouldn't trade it.
Right. I'm glad you cleared that up because it was really hard for me to think that, like, when you first start out, you start out in sort of like a garage thing and you're practicing and stuff. And then you have that goal of someday making it big. And it really, like, unless you're in those shoes, I suppose, you don't really think, I mean, you can't imagine what you guys really went through and stuff. And, when the band broke up, what I heard was that Rick wanted to start and do something in a different direction and stuff. And I thought that's why most bands, the singer will go, or the drummer or whoever will go and do a solo project in between, the albums and stuff. And there, as a diehard fan, you kind of feel bitter when you dedicated all your life. You have all your Triumph shirts, you have all the ticket stubs, all the CDs and albums and stuff, and the posters, and all of a sudden it's gone. And I respect what you said. It makes it much clearer now to me. A couple of years ago, I went and saw Deep Purple, and although Steve Morse is an awesome guitar player, he was the only guitar player on that tour, and I felt the music lacked a punch. All those great songs, and it lacked a punch with just the one guitar player. And I remember one time when I lived in Houston, a friend tried to tell me that it was about the same with Triumph's live performance. That he said that you used the Pyros to cover up the fact that there were so many overdubs in your recordings that you weren't able to reproduce the songs very well live. And personally, I thought you did an awesome job, and I fought like hell for you. But was there a concern about trying to make your sound better or beefier live?
No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there is. It's a hard question to answer. I mean, we're obviously concerned with our sound and so on, but we changed all the arrangements. So, we weren't standing on stage saying, "Oh, we want this to sound more like the record." We never cared about whether it sounded like the record. We just cared about, it's its own piece of art. We're just going to do it. We're the chefs in the kitchen, and it's just like, here's the soup. Hope you like it.
Right. And personally, I did. I remember reading articles back in the day that you were upset when you would go into a city and there wouldn't be any records in the store. Do you remember that?
Well, I think in those days that you could say the same thing about any band, and I think probably what we're talking about here is Mike Levine, because he was on top of that and I wasn't.
Right.
Okay. He had a way of, he had his own spies out there making sure. And yeah, I think every band feels that way back in those days. Is if you come to a city, you want your records in the store, and that's the record company's job to do that. And if they didn't do it, you'd be upset no matter which band. I think it's the same story for every single band.
Right. And the band broke up, and a few years later, you put out Edge of Excess, which I thought personally was a great album. And if it was under any other band name, I think it could have been a different story. Are you still proud of that album?
Yeah, I think we might have been better not to call it Triumph, because it was a different sounding band.
Right.
Rick Emmett has a big footprint. So you take Rick Emmett out of a band, it changes the sound dramatically. And Phil X has an equally big footprint. You put him in a band, and it changes the sound of a band dramatically. So even though you had the Mike and Gil thing the same, changing Rick and Phil is both great guitar players, but totally different aesthetic to their playing, totally different style, totally different tone. Like just right there, just the sound of their acts.
Right.
So I think if we had it to do over again, I don't know what Mike thinks, but we love playing with Phil. He's a fantastic guy. He's doing a great job in Bon Jovi. You know, John is lucky to have Phil
right.
In Bon Jovi, and he's one hell of a great guy. And he's still buddies. We see him when he comes through Toronto, and you know, that was a good experience, a great experience. I need to answer your question. Yeah, I do. I love that record, but I think, you know, in hindsight, maybe we should have called it something else.
Right. So in the documentary, Rick says his brother's dying wish was for him to make it right with Triumph. And when he first called you, were you angry, happy, surprised, awkward?
I've never been angry. I mean, his brother Russell and I were good friends, and Russell was friends with all of us, and he was friends with my mother as well, and lived all in the same street as my mom. So I would see Russell all the time. So when we went through the period of estrangement with Rick, I was never estranged from his brother.
Right.
And he was always trying to convince Rick, you know, bury the hatchet, you know, kind of thing. You know, Russell was a peacemaker, and ultimately, yeah, Rick told the story. It's a true story, and God bless Russell for that. And but actually, we got together. It was an intermediary, really. It was Neil Dixon, who's in the movie as well, and he runs Canadian Music Week. And when they were putting us in their Canadian Music Industry Hall of Fame, and so he called Rick and said, "Hey, I want to put you guys in the Hall of Fame. Well, you know, you got to get together and talk to Gil and Mike, and you know, Russell's passing was going." So all of these things combined to have this moment where, you know, I guess the ice melted or whatever, and you know, we've kind of never looked back from that moment.
Right. And was that what after you guys got back together? How long was it until the Sweden Rock Festival?
Oh, not long. I mean, we went in Canadian Music Hall of Fame in 2007. Then we went to Canadian Music Hall of Fame in 2008, and that 2008 we went and played those shows to basically wanted to show our kids, you know, what Triumph was all about.
Right.
And you know, also just hang with each other and play music together. So we picked these two big festivals, went and did them, and had a blast, and videoed them both. And Sweden we haven't released Rocklahoma yet, but we probably will down the road.
Right. Well, I have to say, the other day I was listening to that Sweden Rock Festival recording, and you guys came out like you had something to prove. I mean, you guys, when you compare that to stages, like that album kicks ass.
Well, really I think the thing there that's maybe hard for some people to appreciate, but you know, Rick, I watched Rick. You know, he played all that time, so he kept playing and playing and playing, and I really believe Rick Emmett has always been every single year a little bit better than the year before his whole life. Like I've never heard him do anything except get better and better and better on guitar. And I keep telling him that. No, I just, man, your playing is unbelievable. And but you know, Mike and I got a different direction. We're doing different things. So when we did Sweden, you know, like we were getting the dust off ourselves. So and we're pretty hard on ourselves too, you know. So I appreciate your comments, but yeah, I felt like we would have needed to do like a full tour, and it would have taken Mike and I like a good year to really, you know, kind of get, I think, fully back in the groove. So, but we nonetheless we had a really good time playing those shows, and you know, we did our best.
Right. Well, I guess I'm going to ask: is there ever going to be a chance that we'll get a new album or tour?
Well, you never say never to anything, I think, in life, but I doubt it. You know, we're all sort of, you know, in different different, you know, sort of phases of our life, and I can really, you know, I can speak for myself. I'm busy doing a lot of things, and
Right.
and I've always thought, we only each get one life, so you should do what you want to do, and whatever that is, whatever it is that makes you wake up in the morning, and kind of, that's what I'm doing. So I'm not waking up going, gee, I want to make another album with Triumph.
Right.
I'm not saying that, I don't at times think about, how much fun we had in the studio, or, love writing songs with the guys, or whatever the case may be. It's just other priorities have taken over in my life. So, and Mike and Rick are, they're, pretty happy in the different things they're doing, and how they're spending their time. And it's a big commitment. Triumph would be a tremendous time commitment for
Right.
all three of us. So, and I don't see it happening, but I also don't say that it'll never happen, because you just don't know. Mike and I went and played on one of the tracks on Rick's album not too long ago, as you're probably aware. We did that a little bit. We played 3 songs in the movie together, which was fun, and that's a possibility. Those will come out on their own. So let's see how it goes. See what pulls us together, or how our lives unfold, going forward.
In the documentary, you guys looked like you really was enjoying getting back together and stuff. And at this point, do you have anything else that you want to share regarding anything else?
Sure. One last thing that's maybe some of your listeners might want to know. There is a tribute album that's going to come out hopefully later this year. It's being produced by Mike Klink, who's a great friend of ours, and a Triumph producer. He's most famous for his work with Guns N' Roses.
Right.
And Mike is just an absolute master producer, and the lineup of phenomenal musicians and singers that are on this album are just incredible.
Right.
And we're really just in awe of the whole project, and we kind of make jokes with him. When we have a call to catch up on where he's at, he was recording Nancy Wilson's vocal last couple of weeks, and he's got other singers. Joey Belladonna from Anthrax is on there, and Sebastian, of course, our buddy, and Phil X, we just mentioned, his vocal and guitars are on there. And oh my golly, guitar players, that are bass players, drummers like Tommy Aldridge, Kenny Aaron. There's 2 right there of the greatest of all. It's Nita Strauss is on guitar. I know he's got, oh God, Matt Sorum, and there's another killer musician. I don't have all the list in front of me or anything like that. It's just like the whole thing is an amazing group of musicians, and they're playing, of course, all our tunes. Alex Lifeson is on there with the musicians from his new band, Envy of None, which is they do a phenomenal version of one of the songs. And the joke we have with Mike is, Mike, this is too good. You're going to make us look bad. So I really think the fans are going to get a real kick, because a lot of the interpretations are totally different than Triumph. There's some that are similar, but there's some that are totally different.
Right.
And we're just really lucky to have the musicians and singers that are involved do that for us, and hopefully the Triumph fans will really get a really big charge out of hearing all these people from other bands. Larry from Styx is on there singing like beautifully. Like it's really it's going to be a nice piece.
That's awesome. Hey, Gil, I really appreciate this. This has been an honor for me. I really appreciate you giving me the time, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you for the music.
Thanks for having me on, Paul, and I appreciate all your sentiment and all your comments as well. And you have yourself a great day.
You too. Thank you.